Removing this serpentine belt on M112 or M113 is not hard, but it can be pretty frustrating, as I'm sure some of you can attest. If you're not familiar with the procedure, you don't have the right tool, and worst of all, if you can't remember how to put it back on, you're going to have some real frustration. In this video, I'm just going to show you a few things I've done to make this job go smoothly. This is particularly important if you do your own work on your M112 or M113. I can almost guarantee during any type of extended ownership, you're going to have this belt off 2 to 4 times. Anytime you're doing any work on the front of the engine, whether you're replacing the alternator, water pump, pulley, tensioner, you're going to have to remove the belt. And you're going to have to put the belt back on. And the key to getting the belt on and off is understanding how the tensioner works and how to get to it to loosen it. You can see the belt is currently under quite a bit of tension. This tensioner is in good condition because I have to lift up really hard to get that belt to move. So I want to take you over to the bench now and show you a tensioner up close and explain how it works so you can better understand how to get this belt loose so you can lift it off the pulleys. This is a brand new tensioner assembly right out of the box. And if you look at it closely, you're going to notice, oh look, there's this pin in here, and I'll explain about the pin a little bit later. You can see the tensioner is kind of split between 2 parts. This is the bracket that bolts up to the block of the engine, and this housing holds a coil spring which can rotate the pulley, providing the needed tension on the belt. So to get the belt loose, you've got to get a wrench on this nut down here. It's kind of hard to see. You've got to push down, or you got to turn this counterclockwise. This rotates the pulley, loosens up the belt, and you get the belt off. I can't do this without this mounted either in a vise or on the engine because it's just too much stress going on here. So when you get a new one, you bolt this up on the engine, then you go ahead and rotate this. You could pull the pin out. The pin is for ease of installation only. But one of the problems is having the right wrench. Now, I do not recommend a flexible head wrench like this. It'll be flopping all over the place. If you have a long ratchet wrench or a long breaker bar, that's good. You're going to need a 17mm deep socket. A shallow socket will only work if you have a flexible head because you're going to hit other parts of the engine. So over the years when I've done this, I've always been very frustrated. I get down in here with my wrench, I start to move this, and then, the socket will fall off the wrench like this and fall down underneath the engine on that belly pan. I can't get to it. So just the other day, after doing this many, many times, I decided, okay, I'm going to see if I can come up with a better tool that's going to make it a lot easier to get this tensioner loose, get the belt off, and then reverse the operation so I can easily get the belt back on. It's not easy to film this because the tensioner is located, I'm going to use a wrench to point. There's your tensioner right there, and that nut is located right underneath the belt right there. So I'm going to give you a couple recommendations if you're taking on this job yourself, maybe for the first time. Number 1, get your camera out and take some pictures of the belt routing. I know you can find this information in the factory manual. Sometimes some cars have a little tag on the core support that shows the routing of the belt. But if you don't do that and you haven't done this before, I guarantee frustration. You're going to say, how in the world does this belt go all over those pulleys? Number 2, don't use a floppy head wrench. You're going to get down here like this, and it's like, oh man. You might be able to get on there. I'm on there now, but I got to get my hand way down here and try to get some leverage, and there's no way I can push my arm far enough down in there while at the same time trying to remove the belt. So I recommend you have a long wrench, either a long breaker bar or something that will let you get the wrench up high, and do not use a flexible head because that just makes it really frustrating. So now I want to show you what I've come up with. And I got to say, I'm really happy with how this wrench works compared to what I've had to fight with over the years. So this is the tool I made here in the shop. Number 1, I wanted a fixed socket. It's welded to the shaft. Can't fall off. Number 2, I had to do an offset. So I've got plenty of room to move this bar back and forth when I'm either loosening or replacing the belt. And then finally, a long handle. I don't want to wear myself out. Plus, I don't have to reach way down in there. There is one thing that's very important. If you're using a wrench like this, do not start with the wrench straight up like that. You can get the pulley moved and loosened, but once you take the belt off, this wrench is going to want to go way back over here and it's going to hit into the hose and you're going to have a hard time getting the socket off. So what you want to do is you want to start, this is when you remove a belt, you want to start with the wrench right here at about this angle. If you haven't done this before, you may have to reach down in there and kind of feel where that nut is. It's just off the side of the pulley and just under the belt. Notice the angle where I start. So I'm going to push down, which is rotating that counterclockwise, and as I push down all the way down here, all I have to do is just lift the belt off this top idler pulley. Now, if I'm only going to check pulleys, or if I'm just going to do a quick inspection, I may not take the belt all the way off, so I may just leave it right there. When I release tension, watch where the bar comes. See, it comes all the way back to here, and it's almost hitting the hose. Now I can remove the socket. So that's important. Don't start here when you're loosening a belt. You know, start with a wrench, whatever wrench you're using, start at about the 45-degree point here. But after using this tool a couple times, man, I don't have any problem now coming up to an M112 or M113 engine and getting the belt off quickly and with virtually no frustration. Now, if there's enough interest, I may go ahead and make this tool and make it available on my website. Now, let me share with you a tip on reinstalling the belt. You want to get the routing all the way on, everywhere underneath there, and you want to bring it up over the top of the water pump down to the alternator. So all you have to do when you're getting this on is to lift the belt right at the idler pulley. There's no way you're going to get that belt on just by lifting up on it. But when you got it in this position, you want to make sure that everything is on and seated. All the ribs are on all the sprockets. Then when you put the wrench on, you want to put the wrench on straight up and down. Because now when you push down on it and release it, it's only going to come back to about this position. So holding onto the belt here, I'm going to rotate this. And I'll just bring my hand over here like this. And lift up on, make sure that's seated in the ribs. And then release tension. And you can see where the wrench ends up, and I can just remove the wrench. So that's making a frustrating job easy.